Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we have a quick review of the Pennsylvania Streamlined K4s number 3768, made by Broadway Limited Imports. This is a model released back in 2020, but it took me until now to finally get my hands on one of these to review. It is quite a unique looking piece, which will cater to many modelers beyond just the Pennsylvania Railroad community, and therefore I decided to make a proper review video for this model. So without further ado, let's get started. The Pennsy K4 needs no introduction. Being one of the most famous locomotive classes to be ever built in the US, images of these heavy Pacifics have been burned into every modeler's mind. PR did a lot of experimenting with their 462s, including auxiliary headlights, elephant ears, disc drivers, front end throttles, and many streamlining styles. 3768 started life out as a plain Jane K4, being built in June 1920. In 1936, it was chosen to be refitted with streamlining designed by the famous industrial designer Raymond Loewy. Affectionately called the torpedo, the shrouding gave the engine a bullet nose shape and smooth contours, resulting in 33% less wind resistance in testing when running the engine into headwinds. The shrouding design also featured a partially enclosed cab, which better protected the crew from smoke inhalation. It was paired with a larger 180 P75 class tender, taken from an I-1S and modded with 6-wheel high-speed trucks. This increased the water capacity from 11,000 to 18,000 gallons and allowed the engine to travel greater distances before stopping for water. Pictures of 3768 was used extensively in promotional material, and the engine itself was used to pull named trains, including Pennsylvania's premiering passenger train, the Broadway Limited. It was also displayed in 1939 New York World's Fair to show Pennsylvania's might. However, by 1946, the engine had gradually lost its charm, as it received further modifications. The tender was replaced with a shorter 4-wheel streamlined variant, and for easier maintenance, the shrouding covering the running gear was removed, as was the pilot shrouding. The engine soon met its fate in 1953 when it was struck from the roster and scrapped. Now let's take a look at the model. The engine is fully die-cast, including engine and tender shells. The paint is very crisp, and the lettering and striping is applied clearly. I especially like the front number boards, which really stand out. The bronze color looks good, but has a matte finish. Real-life photos of 3768 show the engine having a highly polished finish instead. I think a satin or even a slight gloss finish would have been more appropriate for this engine. The gold striping and lettering also look dull when compared to the shiny gold leaf lettering which the engine had in real life. The front keystone monogram is printed crisp and clear, however it would have looked better if it was a separate etched piece instead of being painted on, like in real life. BLI ended up producing 3768 in her 3 earliest appearances. First was the As Delivered scheme in 1936, which was painted bronze with a high-mounted front keystone. This is the model that I have currently. Within a few months, her keystone was brought down to be mounted directly on top of the headlight, and a keystone circle was painted on her tender. Later, 3768 was repainted with dark green locomotive enamel, which was the third and final variation that BLI produced. The real-life engine had much of the detail covered by streamlined shrouding, and BLI faithfully recreates this on their model. There's only a handful of separate wire hand-formed grab irons and handrails. Unlike their M1 or T1, which has many details which I thought would look better if separately applied, I really can't say the same here. Everything I would want to be separately applied is already so. I'm also impressed at the level of molded-on detail captured on the boiler shell. The fine rivets, the complex curved edges, even the treading on the running boards are all rather challenging details to achieve with die casting, and this is a clear example of the fine die casting technology used by BLI. That being said, there are some mold seam lines, notably on the cab and in the front of the engine, which are slightly distracting. The real brass whistle and safety valves look excellent on the model as well. Cab detail is rather minimal, which is appropriate for such an enclosed cab design. There are crew figures and windows, which in my opinion is sufficient. BLI used their standard K4 chassis and mechanism for this engine. You can actually see all the mounts on the sides of the chassis where they would usually mount the various details such as air pumps and air tanks. The mounts are still there but simply unused. I think this is a smart way to cut costs as BLI already has an excellent K4S chassis, the only difference being the rods and wheels which are left unblackened, leaving a shiny chrome appearance on this model. The engine is connected to the tender with the same plastic clip drawbar design used on the original K4. This similar design is used on certain Genesis and Proto-2000 steam engines. While it is more fragile, being made of plastic and all, it does enable a closer gap between the engine and tender. The drawbar expands on curves and contracts when straight, ensuring a constant short gap between engine and tender. There's also an 8-pin plug and a tender deck plate to complete the look. The engine seems to be slanted slightly, however, sagging in the rear, and causing the striping between the engine and tender to be unmatched. This seems to be a rather common issue, as other people have similar issues on their models. Some readjustments of the leading and trailing trucks with a shim should help with this regard. Now let's move on to the tender. The detail is excellent, and I especially like the silver-tipped brake hoses and builder's plate in the back. The cold load looks to be a realistic size, and the red tender deck looks great. Tender underbody detail is decent, with some basic brake rigging, which looks great actually when viewed from the side. My only complaint is the huge gap between the tender trucks and underframe, which really breaks the illusion of realism to me. The streamlining also shows the limitations of die-casting technology, as the model's streamlining looks very thick. When compared to real life, it would have been made of thin sheet metal. Overall, though, I still think that BLI did an excellent job on this tender. Let's now move on to specs and features. This engine weighs an impressive 1 pound 1 ounce, and the tender weighs an impressive 11.4 ounces, making this weigh a total of 1 pound 12 ounces. This is very heavy for a 462, and with the included traction tires, this engine will be sure to pull any train you give it. Unfortunately, there is no traction tireless driver in the box, so if you want to remove them, you'll have to contact BLI customer service for a set of plain drivers and install them yourself. All 6 drivers pick up power from the engine, and the 12 tender wheels pick up 1 on each side, resulting in 6 pickups per track total between engine and tender combined. This engine is equipped with an operating headlight, cab light, backlight, engine and tender marker lights, synchronized smoke, and BLI's rather infamous Paragon 3 sound system. The engine is powered by a powerful can motor with flywheel and gearbox, which connects to the center driver. The engine runs smoothly and offers decent slow speed control, which we can demonstrate now. Alright, over on the track, I'm going to mute her sound real quick, because it's actually really loud. And we'll do a quick motor test. You can see that the smoke unit's running. I put some smoke fluid in just to show that the smoke unit does work. But anyways, we'll try speed step 1 here. This is out of 128. As you see, it's pretty smooth. The speed step 1 seems to be rather quick actually, so I'm sure you can change that to CVs, but it does have a very smooth drive, as you can see. This is a speed step 1 in reverse. It likes to, I think it just hit a dead spot there. There we go. But yeah, very smooth runner. And of course, we can speed her up as well. And yeah, very smooth, very quiet runner. Alright, now I'll quickly go over the sound. This is Paragon 3 sound. Here's the whistle. Here's the bell. The bell is extremely loud and also, in my opinion, very annoying. But it does sound, I guess, pretty good. I would definitely turn that down though if I were you. Keep in mind, this is currently in factory default settings, so yeah. This is now the second whistle, which is CB224 set to 1. And now here's the same CV set to number 2. And now, as with all BLI engines, they actually have a 4th whistle, which they don't really mention, but that is the whistle set for function 22. If you turn function 22 on, it toggles to the second whistle, and here it is. So this is the 4th whistle. Alright, and that is pretty much it for sound samples. I'm going to mute this guy again because the sounds are really loud, and honestly I'm not a huge fan of Paragon 3 sound. I feel like it sounds kind of fake, very electronic-y, and also the sound quality isn't great either. It's a very muffled, and you know, BLI is kind of infamous for having pretty poor sound quality due to their lack of speaker enclosures and just how the decoders work. But anyways, so that's pretty much it for sounds. Again, you can find the rest of the sounds on YouTube. It's just the generic BLI Paragon 3 sound system. There's like thousands of videos demonstrating the sound. It's the same prime mover sound, same generator sounds, same air pump sounds, etc. So yeah, anyways, just to keep this video short, I'm just gonna ignore all that stuff just to show you the important things. And yeah, so with that all being done, let's wrap up the review. And that pretty much concludes my review of this engine. BLI really hit it out of the park on this model, and the fully die-cast robust construction and ample detail really makes this model feel like quality. The only gripes I have with this engine is the paint and the electronics. I feel that the satin or even slightly glossy finish would have been a much better choice for this engine instead of the matte finish they chose. And also the lettering could have been maybe a little bit more gold. It's a bit too dull to me. And then also the electronics. As you know, I'm not a huge fan of Paragon 3 sound. If you actually look up online, you'll see many people who agree that Paragon 3 sound is pretty mediocre, especially with a lot of issues with motor and power pickup and just the sensitivity to bad track. It's very much more sensitive than any other decoder I've seen. And in general, Paragon 3 is just very mediocre with also very mediocre sound quality. A lot of BLI sounds seem really outdated and they sound really old and low quality, washed out. So I'm not a huge fan of the sound system here, but that's kind of true for all BLI models, and I'm sure people who are getting their hands on BLI models is already aware of this, so I won't worry too much about that. But in any case, I'm really glad that BLI chose to make this model. Previously, we were relegated to paying over $1,000 for a brass version of the Streamlined K4, the 3768 variant. And this model is sure to please any Pennsylvania modeler, and it's a welcome addition by me, so yeah. But what are your thoughts on this engine? Would you buy one? Were my points fair? Did I miss anything? Let me know in the comments down below. And on that note, I hope you guys enjoyed my review of this engine. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.